right, welcome back to For Better. Get ready. You guys asked for this one. And so we're here. We're going to talk about intimacy today.
Mm-hmm.
So, as awkward as it is for you, imagine how Josh feels behind the camera. But I will say, we'll kind of use this as a pause. Like if you have kids in the car and you're listening to this, you may want to pause till later.
Yep, this is for after they go to bed tonight.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a very important part of marriage.
It is.
Very important. So, you want to kick things off?
Yeah, I heard this the other day and it made me laugh because it's so true in many areas of a marriage and relationship. But someone said there are those who can't relax until they have sex, and there are those who can't have sex until they relax. And then those two get married. And you just have such different, and that could go for anything of cleaning the house, of, doing chores. Like,
Yep.
you're just probably both not going to be ready at the same time. So
Yeah, you're probably opposite. You got married, and this category is no exclusion to that.
God's got a sense of humor.
Yeah. I will say this. This is a little disclaimer for really anything we talk about. We're going to talk about generalities. Like in general, there are certain truths. Like, for example, when we got married, Steph just wanted me all the time. And I was like, gosh, would you just leave me alone? Like, that's normally not the case. It's normally the other way around. But there are exceptions to every rule. So take that in mind. But we are going to speak to generalities. But I think the first thing we want to start, obviously, we use a biblical foundation for everything. So we're going to go through some scripture on this. You're like, does the Bible actually talk about this? Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things that we need to define is like, what is the purpose of sex in a marriage? And there's three purposes, actually. I'm willing to bet you only know two.
Right.
But do you want to share what they are?
Yep. So procreation, to grow and multiply the earth, enjoyment, and for intimacy.
Yep. The one you're probably missing is enjoyment. Like, people understand the intimacy piece, but this is actually supposed to be enjoyed by both parties, not just one. It's not supposed to be chewing glass, right? The entire book of Song of Solomon talks about the subject. And I know some people have made an argument of like, oh, that's a metaphor of like how Christ loved the church. No, it's not. When she talks about she found pleasure in his shade, just picture it, guys on top. Okay? So it's a crazy visual, but go read it for yourself. That's what it's talking about. Yeah. But in that, I think why this is a very difficult subject to talk about, because as believers, we look at everything this way. What is the world's way of doing things, or what's categorized in the world, and then what's categorized as is from God. We put sex in the bucket of the world instead of putting it as for God or from God.
Right. And
that needs to shift mentally. And understand how it got there is because your entire life growing up, you were taught this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, wait. And all of a sudden, you say I do, and that's supposed to change all this mental programming you've had to say, oh, I'm supposed to enjoy this now. Well, God created it. He could have created anything, and he created it, and it's awesome, and it is for your enjoyment as a married couple. And I'm going to throw out a disclaimer, or I guess a hot take. I think Christians, married couples, should have the best sex lives of anyone on the planet, because we're connected to God. God created it. But anything you want to start off with on that? I know we're going to dive into some scripture. But.
Yeah, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Let's go to what God says about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start with Ephesians 5:25.
Ephesians 5:25 says, "Husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her."
All right, so let me talk about that for a minute. I know, guys, you're probably excited to listen to this, just thinking, I hope this makes us to have more sex. I know where you're coming from. But that verse applies to everything we do in life. We're supposed to be the biggest giver. And so kind of a principle for this as we dive through this, never enter the bedroom with the mindset to take. You need to be give first. Let your imagination run wild. But that can cause a huge blockage. I mean, if a lady feels like, oh, I'm just being used for this one thing versus like he's trying to actually connect with me and serve me, that's a huge difference in a lady, right?
Right.
So yeah, you don't want to do that. Guys, keep that in mind.
And I heard this analogy of just physically of the guy versus the woman. A guy is like a microwave. You just type in the button and it's ready in 30 seconds, where the woman is an oven and a stove, and it takes time for the stove to warm up to be ready to cook something.
Yep.
And so guys just having, again, that mindset when you're walking into intimacy of like to serve and to give and to know. God created us different hormones, different chemical makeup, different physical anatomy, but taking time to explore the other one.
All right, on the oven, I got a question for you.
Okay.
There's a statement we love that if you want to have sex at night, it starts in the morning.
Yeah.
What does that mean for guys?
Guys, this is your cheat code. It's not just like, boom, okay, it's 8 p.m., the day's over, it's go time. It's starts in the morning. And women, because we are that oven, that slow cook to get to that point, like, we need to be served throughout the day. And when you show us you care about us, of unloading the full dishwasher, of helping out with the kids, and you're taking off just these little loads that add weight and stress to us throughout the day, and you're helping just take those off our plate, how much freer that makes us by the end of the day, is we don't have all those extra weights on us, but also that servant love that you have given us throughout the day, like that opens our heart, and that is like more appealing sometimes than anything you could wear or you could say. You could like to show those acts of love, and showing that you really care about us. Like there's so much power in that. So it starts in the morning, and
Yep. And also to help too, like, you got to think, guys, we kind of operate in waffle squares. Like if things are going horrible over here, we can just jump right over here and it's perfectly fine. And I think part of my job in serving you is helping like take some of that clutter out of your life so that your mind is freed up. You know what I mean? And not focused on this dumb thing or that thing, you know?
Yeah, no, what you're referencing, there's a book called Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghetti. And guys, I think that's part of how God created you, with that microwave effect of, if you had like your boss yell at you at work that day, like you were so easy to jump out of into the next waffle square of, well, I'm home now and we just had my favorite steak dinner, so life is good. And you like can completely turn off that, high intense conversation that you had with your boss, and it doesn't carry as much weight with you. We're like, women are like spaghetti. Like we might start a conversation and all of a sudden we've talked about 7 different topics, and then we come back around to the first thing we started talking about. And to us, it's all connected and it all makes sense. But to the guys, sometimes they're like, I am so lost and I don't know half the things we just talked about. But that's how we're wired. And so having all those things, like women, we're so interconnected with all of our day and our experiences, that it stays with us all day, whether we want it to or not. And so when you know that about each other, I think that helps you be able to relate, to serve, to prepare the other one for that connection.
Yep. Fantastic. So let me lay another foundation here. We've talked about this in other episodes, but this is our mindset, and this does not change in anything we talk about. A marriage works best when 2 people try to outserve the other.
Yeah.
Right. And that needs to be the foundation in this area too. And so learning all these things is very, very helpful. Again, you don't just give to get. Let's talk about that a little bit. And because this wasn't always a great area for us.
Right. Intimacy for us, like we did go through a season where it wasn't great and it wasn't what we wanted. And choosing to not let it stay that way, I think, has been one of the greatest choices in this area that we've made. But yeah, there were some hurts and some buildups and just life that allowed it to kind of go a direction that we didn't intend. But even just being transparent here, like there was a season where Nelson would maybe help or serve or take care of things around the house for me, or just serve me in ways to show me he loved me. But as soon as he realized that intimacy or connection wasn't going to happen that night for whatever reason, the way that he served me and treated me, it was like he stopped. And he stopped treating me well and pursuing me, and just kind of turned that off, and then went back to what he was doing. And then that created more hurt in me, and that made me not want to serve him and not want to connect with him even more. And so it really, like, the power of communication. We got to a point where I was just vulnerable, and I shared with him of how that reaction of stopping, showing like he stopped caring about me, because not that he did, but that's how it felt to me. Then it made me not want to connect even more. And so
Yep.
being vulnerable and having that conversation, I think, was a big turning point for us.
It was. And we, again, these are things you need to talk about as husbands and wives. Like, that was good information for me to know that she felt that way. And then also, like, again, the conversation went both ways. The guy, I know you can be frustrated. Wow, it's like, okay, I got a honey-do list of 99 things. I do all of them. I ask for one and get turned down. What the heck's up with that? Like, that's not fair. But someone's got to be the leader in stepping the foot forward. And again, not, take, you fill this, and then I'll fill that. It's not you, then that. It's, I'm going to control what I can control, which is serving you with all my heart. And, typically what happens when that area gets stale, it's pretty simple. It's one person has a certain idea for frequency, another person has another idea for frequency, and then other things that need to be met to have that. And a lot of times you don't get what either one wants. You meet in the middle, and it's average at best. Because, and let's dive into that. Because, when we got married, that was a conversation, and there's different seasons in life too you go through, like no kids, with kids, there's hormonal changes. So like take all that stuff into factor. But frequency, my thought was when we got married, you sleep 8 hours. 4 times a day was okay, It's good cardio. I had all this benefits laid out. But obviously, guys, as you found out like I did, that is not realistic. Unless you're Scottie Pippen, which you can Google that story. But anyway, that led to divorce. But the Bible actually does talk about this. And so let's read and let's dive in.
Let's hear what God says.
1 Corinthians 7, starting at verse 2. Reading this from the New King James Version, if you want an exact text. It says, "Nevertheless, because of sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. Let the husband render to his wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another, except with a consent for a time, that you may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again so that Satan does not tempt you because of your lack of self-control." There's a lot in that.
Yeah.
Let's unpack it a little bit, okay? A lot of people were thinking, so is that an open door policy? Kind of. However, there's a caveat here, and it took us a long time to get to this point. And
Let me clarify. When you say open door policy, you mean to have sex with your spouse anytime.
Yes.
Not open door for other things just clarifying. Open door
Thanks.
policy to have sex with your spouse.
Yes, we don't have control of our own body. Yes, in the marriage relationship.
Okay.
Good call out. That could be taken a lot of different ways.
Yeah, got you. I got you.
But in that, there is a lot of trust that has to happen here. And I think this may be one of the highest forms of trust, when you figure out, like, I'm trusting somebody with the most vulnerable, intimate area of my life, and vice versa. And so because of that, guys, let me talk to you. Number one, Paul was single, and he goes on later in that verse to say, hey, this isn't a commandment, just a recommendation. That is not to be used as a weapon by any stretch of the means. And because of that, again, let's go to both sides. When there's an abundance of something, you don't have to ask for it every time, because if you know you need it, you can have it. However, I would want to know, and guys, you should want to know, ladies, you should want to know, if your spouse isn't feeling it and why. You should want to know that. I want to know that. And there's freedom there. It's not just like, hey, this is biblical rape. No, that is completely like off limits. That's not what that is saying.
Right.
It is to trust one another with the needs that you say you have. So on frequency, here's the challenge for you. And this could be not just with sex, with anything. It could be a back rub. It could be washing the car. The ultimate form of trust is to say, hey, I trust you, husband or wife, to tell me what your needs are. And I trust that it's accurate and you're not taking advantage of me.
Right.
And vice versa.
Right.
But let's talk about, again, this was a big thing. Like, words matter so much. Because, ladies, one thing you need to know with a guy, you're not saying no to it, you're saying no to him. It's an identity thing for guys. Like, guys want to be respected. This is probably the number one area. They feel that.
Yeah.
Like, if things are right at home, they can, conquer the world. But let's give two scenarios. So one, is you just had a tough day, right? And I will say this, Steph is fantastic about, and this makes all the difference in the world. So one could be like, gosh, honey, like, we just did that the other day. Like, can you just leave me alone? That will shut him down faster than anything else you could ever do, because he just took an attack on his identity. Versus, again, this is where a huge level of trust has to be built here. We're in, hey, honey, if you really need that tonight, I'll serve you. However, if you can wait till tomorrow night or even the day after, I promise it'll be worth your while. Ladies, he's good. He is good, and he will be the most productive he's ever been for those next 2 days, right? But see, That's where the trust is. Like, I want to know, I don't want you to be miserable in that. Like, this is two people coming together. Again, it should be a pleasurable experience.
Right.
But one thing we did early on when we talked about this, do you want to share about like the 24-hour rule? And I think this applies to way more than just sex, or I can start about it.
Yeah, the 24-hour rule. So when whichever partner pursues intimacy and it doesn't happen for whatever reason, the person who pushed pause on it has 24 hours to initiate that interaction.
Yeah.
And showing them that, like, I'm not denying or neglecting or ignoring your need or your vulnerability to communicate that you needed that connection. But for whatever the reason was that it was put on pause, that I'm pursuing you and I'm showing you that I love and care about you. And so having 24 hours to pursue the other one. And I think one thing, when we took time to communicate this and we slowed down to just figure out, like, why do you need this the way that you need it? And why do I need intimacy and connection and how I need that? When we took time to have some of these conversations, like, one thing that gave me so much power and confidence in our connection here was I was the only person that could fill you up in that area. And when you didn't have that source of just fulfillment, like, it was almost like kryptonite. And so, like, withholding that was your kryptonite. And not that you need that to survive, to thrive, but the power that it gave you, and knowing that I was the only one that God entrusted to fill you up in that area, and just how it filled you up. And you communicated that with me of maybe how it makes you feel. Or there were certain times when we were talking about the frequency of, like, what made sense for us, certain times where you said, knowing myself, of this is when it fills me up the most, or maybe when you need it the most, that you feel like you're being weighed down with kryptonite, and to be able to soar at your fullest potential and communicate what that is of, I just had an argument with my boss today and I'm feeling so beat down. Like, this is something that would really fill me up. Or maybe it's, I have a big presentation tomorrow at work and I just, like, have a lot of thoughts going through my head. I'm really nervous about it. Like, no, I know me, and to be able to excel in that, like, if we connect in this area, I know I'm going to be at my best for that performance. And so just figuring out, like, practically, like, what things in life, like, that fills you up the most for. And then just being like, just for me, it was like an honor and just being thankful that, like, I could be the only source of that for you. There was no energy drink you could drink, no, whatever that could give you that power to just bring out the best gifts and skills and talents that God put in you to soar and to flourish and to do your best throughout the day. So when we just, like, broke down and talked about that, of, like, how I could really contribute to maybe our family, you're the one that right now is our financial provider. And so I'm like, if I can like make him perform and help him perform at his best by just connecting in this, like, one, that's a great way that I feel like I can contribute to you as my spouse, but like as our family unit. But then like the byproduct of that connection and what that did for our relationship and how it brought us closer of the physical intimacy, but also like the emotional intimacy that came with it
Yep.
because of the conversations and the vulnerability that we allowed ourselves to have as we've been just on this journey for it.
Absolutely. And I think you probably noticed I would talk a lot more when I feel, walls come down and you feel more open to just talk about things. A lot of times guys will lock up and don't talk about things, but you mentioned something there in that verse. A lot of people just view it as an act, but it actually, when it talks about keeping Satan off of your spouse, like people don't view it as ministry, and it is. You're like fighting the enemy in some arenas.
And how the world can operate of given the example of like when guys you're like so thirsty you just need a drink of water, like if it's maybe been a while since you've been intimate or connected with your spouse, like you have a conference call coming up and give the example of like how the enemy's going to
Yeah,
try
like,
to distract or attack you in this area because he knows it's been a while since you've connected with your spouse.
100%. So you'll have like you get turned down, guys or ladies, would be good for you to know. Husband gets turned down. He's thirsty, whatever you want to say there, and he's supposed to have a meeting with a 65-year-old 400-pound dude the next day, and nope. Oh, sorry, they couldn't be there. It's this 25-year-old single that would love nothing more than your
His
husband.
assistant with a low cut shirt pops up on the Zoom video camera, and you're like, "This isn't who I was supposed to meet with."
Right.
And just the temptations that are put in front of you,
And nothing justifies
any
satisfying
actions
taken there.
right?
But it's it is warfare that you have, and it like that whole world. I mean, is so. I mean, you are 2 clicks away from the gates of hell on your phone at any time, and that's how a lot of guys get tempted and get into really really dark scenarios. But on that, so let's go back to this too. So so from a frequency question, you guys need to have that conversation. And you mentioned something too of like noticing, how like what would you talk about, hey, when do you need this the most and all that. The goal is to get so good at this of me, like from a guy's standpoint, reading stuff of knowing what her stressors are and knowing, okay, I don't need to ask her. I can just step in and do this, boom, 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 and make her day and life better. And then vice versa. And then again, that applies to way more than just intimacy, but that's where you want to get to. But you do want to talk about this. I mean, there's, it was given as a gift, and a lot of times it's a pain point in a marriage, and it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
It should be an area of connection that creates this bond that's unbreakable. Anything else you want to share on that?
I will say one thing of just like practical tips. We're in a season where I'm at home raising 4 young kids, and that's kind of my day of chaos. You're running a company, it's busy, and just knowing like the different ways that men and women like mentally are like sometimes in this season where it's easy for me to feel like Cinderella cleaning up after my evil stepsisters all day, like the last thing Cinderella would want to do was be intimate after a day like that of scrubbing floors and cleaning up who knows what. But taking time to just make that mental shift of, okay, I'm going to go take a hot shower. I'm just going to rinse off the day. I'm going to decompress and like mentally prepare to make this shift, to get my act into my emotions, to have my emotions and my heart, my desires all line up and know that I'm going and switching gears into this area of serving, of taking time throughout your week, ladies, to do what fills you up. If it's taking time to paint your nails, if it's taking time to do a bubble bath to just decompress, if it's taking time to, give yourself a facial at night that you feel more confident, you maybe feel beautiful and you feel like you want to like show that for your spouse. Like find those ways that can build up your confidence, maybe when you're in just like a busy season or a hard season, maybe a draining season, and taking time to fill you up so that you can have something to give, to love, just to show your spouse how much you care, and you want to connect with them.
Absolutely. And you hit on something there. There is a huge difference. And this is going to sound like I'm coming off harsh, but let me unpack it a little bit. In a willing participant and a cheerful participant. Like nobody wants to feel in anything. Like if Steph asked me for a back rub and I'm just like, whatever, come here. How does that make her feel? Terrible. Versus us saying, absolutely. I know you've been carrying those kids all day. Like, yes, come here. And you know what I mean? Where there's some enthusiasm there, like a joy to serve. And I feel I could go on a whole tangent about that. I could get in the business world and marriages. People have just lost the joy to serve for no other reason other than we've been served by a mighty God who loves us, and therefore we should serve.
Right.
But there's a huge difference there. And I know, you made that. And there's also on the other side too, I don't just do things to prepare for that. I do that because it makes you feel good and serve you to know that the dishes are clean. And whatever it is, it could be different for every person. But husbands, you got to allow for that for your spouse. Like, yes, it may take all day. It may take a week to get, this stuff prepared or whatever. But you've got to help create the environment to where she feels safe, comfortable, and can feel, beautiful and ready, and all those sort of things that go with it. But this is it's fun conversation. But what we hope this does for you all is it gives you some talking points to let this area of your life be joyful and fruitful and become an asset and not a liability, not something you argue about all the time. And it takes work, right? Like there needs to be a lot of conversation around. It shouldn't be every conversation, but I mean, around like, what's pleasurable? What do you like? What do you not like? Like it's a lifelong journey once you get married of exploration. That should be a joyful thing.
Of learning your spouse.
Yes.
And I think and it changes. And I think learning to adapt and change, like, fit the physical makeup. Like after women have children, their physical makeup of their body changes. And so guys getting to explore of like maybe one thing that y'all enjoyed before is going to be different now.
Yep.
And so getting to know that and learn about your spouse and their body and their makeup, but also learning to men, but mainly women too. As your body changes, there's chemical changes in your body too. And so if you're doing all these things of preparing for wanting to connect, and there's that desire to want to connect with your spouse in this area, but something's still not happening, like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. That sometimes people do need to seek help. Like as women start entering into ages where they're going to menopause or even premenopause, sometimes just hormones need to be adjusted, or different things that make your body change and do things when you're being intimate with your spouse. Like it's okay to seek out a doctor and to talk to them about things, to see, just be vulnerable and explain of what's going on and seek help. And there have been plenty of stories of people that sought help, and that helped elevate and take to the next level their connections with their spouses, and elevated that enjoyment factor of it, of just seeking, not knowing that there was something maybe chemically or physically anatomy wrong, like that could be helped, that was able to elevate that experience.
I was in that boat, I'd take whatever. However many, if I take 100 pills, I'll do it. One last thing, guys, I feel like I've been maybe a little tougher on women for whatever reason. But again, you may have a woman that's an aggressor and the guy that's not, or the one that wants intimacy more. But guys, this is something I've had to learn the hard way. I thought the most ridiculous ask in the world, and I'm being truthful, to give a back rub and not try anything, that's ridiculous. You know what you're asking for? Like crazy. But not every touch has to lead to something, okay? Learn to just like be flirty, be playful without always trying to go the distance. You know what I mean? Like that makes wife feel like a prop, or, be used like, I don't know. But I can tell, and this is going to make people really awkward when we're around them, but when we're around couples, I can tell if they have a good intimate life by how they interact around. You know, do they feel comfortable? Not PDA like weird stuff, but just can they touch without there being, you know, ties to it. You know what I mean? And so this area, guys, we want it to be an area of freedom and just flourish in your life and allow it to be, again, not in the world's bucket, but in God's bucket. Well, we got through it.
We did it.
talked. Yeah. So y'all pray for, hey, this was tough to talk about. All right. We're getting,
But we did it for you guys.
Yes,
So we
this is
hope
for
it
you all.
helped.
So
We hope
we
you have
take
good
tips.
conversation.
What's your Venmo? And my I'm just teasing, but y'all have a good day. We'll see you next time.
For better.